Alrighty, today I've been waiting for this guy for so long, and I guess I've been waiting because I haven't called him to have him on until recently, and we had a chance to meet in PEI at a golf tournament, and we hit it off and had great conversation. So Ken Reid, welcome to the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Raw Knuckles. Hosted by Chris Nilan.
Nilan going ballistic. I love it. He's going to hit his own players. He's a madman. He's a freaking madman. Look at him going to town. That'll be a suspension. That'll be a fine. Bring them all out, Nilan, you freak.
It's going to be sick.
Chris, it's a thrill. I mean, to sit here with you, I see you drinking out of the cup there in 86 behind you. I won $1 from Vernon Galbraith when you guys beat the Flames that year. I had a bet with Vernon. Diehard Habs fan. You're one of my mom's all-time favorites. She's psyched. I'm psyched. Let's go, buddy.
Well, that's incredible. Now, listen, I have certainly a warm spot in my heart for Nova Scotia.
Yes.
My first year pro, I got sent down to Halifax, and it was the second year of the Metro Center. Now, coming from Boston, I'm going to Halifax. I'm like, ugh. I just think little city. Everything was new to me that way, and it was a small city, and I'm like, and it took me a little time to adjust, but once I started playing, I felt a whole lot better about it, but it was just odd for me to be there. Now, when I look back at those memories and the opportunity that was provided me at that time in Nova Scotia, I just have just great memories of my short time there. And I came to miss Nova Scotia, and it's always nice to go back.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mini. Was it like a mini Boston for you after a while?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, yeah, and more so today, I'd say, because I've been there recently, and more. I can appreciate it more today than I could back then.
Yeah, it was so cool for us as kids to have the Voyageurs there, right? Because I was a diehard Habs fan, and then when they moved to Sherbrooke and the Oilers came in, it wasn't a bummer. I mean, the Oilers were there, but there's always this great connection, the Al McNeil connection, right, between the Voyageurs and the Habs, and I mean, Larry won the Calder Cup there. It was it was almost like an ideal farm system. And the Halifax Forum, before they moved to the Metro Center, is kind of like a mini forum back in the day. Not near as majestic, but, I can see what they were going for.
Yeah. So, looking back on those days, and again, you grew up in Pictou, right?
Pictou,
County?
yeah, exactly.
And my good friend Dan Robertson from Trenton, and one of my very good friends. I love Dan Robertson. I love those Nova Scotia guys, and that goes back to Danny Gallivan, by the way.
Absolutely.
Who and I never knew this about Danny, that he died here in Montreal in his apartment all alone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like, his wife passed away about 3 years previous, and I just found that sad because here's a Nova Scotia guy, and his career was over. Like, why would you stay in Montreal? And here I am, a Boston guy in Montreal. Well,
I guess you know the answer, right?
Yeah, right.
Same thing. It's funny. John Shannon sent me a video the other day, and all it said was Danny was the best. And it was Danny from 1979. And I'm honored every year I go back and I play in the Danny Gallivan Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament. I MC it. And Bob Cole would come every year. And for me, when I was a kid, players were my heroes, but equally was Danny Gallivan, Bob Cole, and Dick Urban. Like I knew I wanted to be an announcer. So Danny, the fact that I knew that Danny was from Sydney and went to school in Antigonish, and my father's good friends with Danny's son, Danny Jr. And so there was always that aspiration to kind of be Danny Gallivan. I'll be honest, like Dan Robertson's living my dream job. I wanted to be a play-by-play guy too. So I'm super psyched. When Dan got that Habs job, that was so cool. And now he's full-time in Winnipeg on the TV. Like it's so cool for a guy from Trenton, because you asked Dan, Trenton and Pictou, buddy.
Oh, really?
Kind of
Really?
like, I don't know, Dorchester and Woburn, we
Yeah.
ain't getting along.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. Towns were about 15 minutes apart, but we're all from Pictou County. But you wanted to see some good scraps back in the day. The old Pictou Town League, if they hooked up with some guys from the league in Trenton, she'd be nasty, buddy.
So, like, Teapot himself, Dana Johnson, the Teapot.
There he is. There's
It's
the sweet one.
unbelievable.
It's the sweet one right there. So yeah, this guy played Junior C, and for me, the rink was right down the hill from my house. The Junior C game started at 7:30. Hockey night came on at 9 back in the day in Atlantic Canada. The Junior C game go to around 9:40. I'd run home, watch Coach's Corner, watch the second and third. So my heroes were the guys on TV and the guys who I thought were going to be on TV one day. They had matching uniforms. This puck is from the game-winning goal in second sudden death overtime, Nova Scotia Junior C Championship at Glasgow Stadium, March 20th, 1984. T gave me that when I went home last year for a book signing. So, yeah, I wrote a book about hometown hockey heroes, so Teapot's mine. I'm sure you had guys growing up in Boston who maybe you looked up to who played locally. So, for me, that was a big part of my hockey journey.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was playing against them, and
Yeah.
and it's funny because me, I remember playing high school hockey growing up, and I didn't play on the varsity team till I was a junior. I played freshman, and I never played as a freshman. I sat on the bench, and then my sophomore year, I ended up playing JV, and then eventually, as a junior, I made the team. But some of the guys we played against were just incredible, and one of them was one of the Fiddler brothers from Charlestown, and Mike Fiddler played with the Whalers, played with Minnesota a little bit, but Michael Fiddler back in the day just ripped up the high school league. It was crazy the number of points he was putting up, and I'm like, man, he's not even that good a skater. And Fid, he was okay skater, but he had them duck feet.
Yes,
but he could get there and score goals. But yeah, those guys I kind of looked up to in high school, but certainly none other than the great Bobby Orr's what got my attention, and the Big Bad Bruins back in the day.
Yeah, see, you were lucky. You grew up with the Big Bad Bruins right in front of you. You could maybe sneak in or go to a game at the Garden. Like, for me, the dream was to go to the Montreal Forum one day. And I remember my grade 5 yearbook, Mrs. McLean signed it. She said, one day, Kenny, you'll get to see it.
One day.
So in grade 7, I went, and we saw the first game was the Islanders. The second game was the Flyers. We went up in March. It was St. Pat. It might have been around whatever St. Patrick's Day is, because the St. Patrick's Day parade was on. And we went to the Islanders on a Thursday night. I remember being way up at the top, and you had to look down to see under the roof. And then the next game, it was Friday night. There was this reunion game of the 72 series. I didn't know what the hell it was. I still have the program, which is amazing to think I got to see Evanka Osmak skate around. And then the next night, my brother and I sat way down in the expensive seats. That was pretty cool. But my dream was to get to the Forum, and I got there in grade 7. To be there, it was like a religious experience for me. I thought the Hector Arena in Pictou was big because we had like 6 sets of stands. Dan Robertson's rink in Trenton, they had like 2 sets. Dan was in the ghetto rink, man. The Hector Arena in Pictou was the way to go. So I remember seeing an escalator in the Forum, and I thought, an escalator inside a hockey rink? This is like the greatest thing I've ever seen.
And it's funny when you stood out front and looked at those escalators, right? They were hockey sticks, right?
They were hockey sticks, yeah.
And a lot of people didn't know that. I remember my first time coming up on there. That's odd. They look like hockey sticks, And
they did it on purpose.
It's funny. When I was drafted back in 78, the Habs were going for their 4th in a row, right? And I'd been drafted. I stayed in school another year. But I went to a practice at the Boston Garden with a friend of mine. He said, why don't you see if we can get tickets the next game in Montreal? So I went up and talked to Claude Rell. He was standing there. I didn't know who he was. I knew he was like a coach or something. I just went up and, hey, I was drafted by you guys. You think I could get some tickets? He's like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
Go talk to that man over there. And it was Irving Grumman's son, Howard, who was he was the road secretary. So I went up to him. I introduced myself. And he said, you were drafted by us? And I said, yeah. I gave him my name, and he looked in the guidebook in the back, and he said, oh, yeah, you were.
Wow.
Sure, I'll leave you tickets. So we go the next game up in Montreal. Franny, friend of mine, Franny Florida, and we drive up, and we go to the ticket booth, and I said, tickets for Chris Nilan. And the lady, 1 second, comes back. She goes, that'll be $260. I'm like, what? So that day, I always joke, I found out the difference between a first-round pick and a 17th round pick, or whatever I was.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah, it's like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, and thank God Franny had a hot credit card with him. Otherwise,
there you go.
We might not have been got in the game.
Did you debate scalping the tickets after you got them?
We did, but no, we had to go in the Forum. I've never been in the Forum, and we had to, and they were good seats. They were red seats, and just incredible to finally catch a game at the Montreal Forum. So I know, especially you being a Habs fan growing up, I hated the Habs.
Right.
You know, they always beat the Bruins, and I was like, come on. And even that year, when I was drafted, I wanted to see the Bruins beat them. I did, because I had no allegiance yet, other than, okay, they drafted me, and then they charged me for the tickets to bastards.
That'd piss me off. Like, you charged me for the tickets? Holy
Crazy.
Christ.
Crazy.
There's
so
no massage in the draft picks back then, eh?
No.
I wonder if they would have charged the first rounder. Who was their first rounder that year in 78?
Danny Jeffrion.
Boom Boom's kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Boom Boom was the coach, right?
Wow.
That year, that was the last year of Scotty Bowman. And Boom Boom came in the next year, my first training camp.
Wow.
He was the coach. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
When Boomer got let go and Claude Rell took over, Danny got sat down and I got called up. Wow. So the first round pick that year was replaced by the
17th.
It's crazy. When you look back, that's what happened. And I mean, I certainly don't take any pleasure in knowing that and what happened there, because the father coaching the son and the pressure being the first round. Yeah, that was a tough situation for both. I couldn't imagine being there with my dad in that situation.
Yeah, either or. It's bad enough in minor hockey, let alone in the National Hockey League.
Yeah. So as a young kid growing up in pick 2, right? So you had the certain guys you looked up to in the media and all that stuff, but what kind of steered you toward a broadcasting career as opposed to a hockey career?
My hockey skills, first and foremost.
Okay.
I'm a men's league player, not even a good one, but I love the game. And I was thinking before I came on, like, what kind of fueled that passion and what was it? And I'm trying to look back for a perfect answer, and I don't really know, but hockey's just always been there. There's pictures of me, in rubber boots and my diaper. Mind you, I'm 17 at the time, playing hockey with my grandpa in front of the fireplace. And it was just always there. I always enjoyed going to the rink. I remember wearing Orbits, and skating around a pair of Orbits. I probably wish they were Larry Robinson Microns at the time, but they weren't.
Langs,
yeah, exactly, Langs. But I always loved it. I don't know what it was. I remember being we had this quarry in town, and it would flood over, and just being on that with, like, you remember the 2-bladed skates, and it was just always there. Maybe it was the fact that, like, the family would bond around the hockey game on Saturday night. That might have had a role to do with it, but when I was around maybe 9 or 10, I remember getting cut from a team and coming to the realization that if I can't make this team in Pictou, I'm not going to make the NHL. And kind of moping to my dad and, well, what am I going to do? My whole plan was to play in the NHL. And I remember he just kind of said, well, the guys who broadcast the games get in for free. And I thought, oh, that's a good deal. So I thought I'd go to be a broadcaster, which drove my dad nuts because I didn't take my academics serious because I knew what I wanted to do. I know I didn't have to have chemistry to do this. Physics, no. I'm definitely not into the analytical nerd side of hockey broadcasting, so that worked out well. But it was just something I always wanted to do. Went to school, got my journalism. Then I moved back I went to Dartmouth, the other side of Halifax Harbor, where I worked at a Channel 10. And I was the voice of the Dartmouth Olin Exports of the Maritime Junior League. Chris, you want to see some great fights back in the day?
I guess.
Show. I mean, we had Darren Langdon came out of there, Dennis Bondy. They were a couple years before me.
Yeah, those two. Ooh.
Those two Langer can go. Bondy can go.
Yeah.
And just worked my way up. And I remember I came to this head when I was.
So how old are you there? The first job? That's your first job in
22.
media.
Yeah, I'm 22. I'm 22. Okay. I'm doing play-by-play for guys that are 2 years younger than me. Some of them were my buddies because they played with my brother.
Yeah.
And then I did that for 2.5 years, and I'm like, oh, I can't make a living on $8.24 an hour at 32 hours a week anymore. And I moved to Calgary and worked my way up as a sports anchor eventually, but haven't done play-by-play of hockey in 27 years, 26 years, which was crazy. But if you told me I could do it now, I'd be like, I got the kids and stuff. So, and I love my job now. I love that I get to talk about hockey, and I get to go to the rink every once in a while. And it's sometimes like the first time I ever did Hockey Night in Canada in Montreal, they said, you're going to go on the bench, and when the Habs come out, you're going to interview Kirk Muller. And I was like, what? Because Kirk was an assistant coach at the time. And I knew Kirk. I knew Kirk. I do a lot of golf events in the summer.
What was that, 2017-ish?
Yeah, around there.
Ballpark, right?
Yeah. And Kirk, I knew Kirky because we'd done a lot of events together in the summer, golf tournaments and stuff. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And, you know, I'll be honest, when I'm anchoring, I'm not nervous. It's just, but when I was on that bench, I was like, holy smokes. And then the lights go down and the Habs come out. And I'm like, what in the name of Christ am I doing on their goddamn bench? Like, I'm one of those guys. Back in the day when I was a reporter, I didn't like going in the room because I thought that's their room.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you send the players out, I'm cool. But I like going in and saying who I can talk to. But I'm always like, it's their room. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent. But the Habs skate out. My heart starts beating. I'm like, okay, I just got to talk to Kirk. And I hadn't seen Kirk yet that day. So he comes around the corner and he has his assistant coach strut on. You know, he's like coming out like this. And he looks up, he sees me. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know. so that calmed me right down. Yeah. So I did the interview. It was great. And then it was 20 minutes later, I'm introing the game. And this was perfect because this is my dad in a nutshell. And this is what people perceive on TV as a nutshell. I'm doing the intros, blah, blah, blah. And the lights go down in the bell sign. So I talked to Dad after. He's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. He's like, you're on. But why did you turn the lights off in the middle of your intro? I'm like, do you think I control the power grid at the Bell Center, Dad? So that was a thrill. I gave the puck from my first, because they gave you the puck. I gave the puck to my mom because my producer went and got a warm-up puck for me. So I gave it to Mom. So, yeah, that was a big thrill, man. So to say I did it and I got to hold that mic flag for me, and I got to give Brendan Gallagher a Hockey Night towel. For me, that's cool.
Awesome.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. So, yeah.
That's so cool. And by the way, I saw your mom on your Instagram. Yeah, very pretty lady, by the way.
Thank you, buddy.
And certainly must be proud of your career and the path you've taken in life. But, you know, when you think back to that first job, right, you had, and before, did you have your sights set back then on, like, I want to get to Toronto, or I'm just going to, you know, jump from this stone to this stone, and where I end up, who knows?
I wanted to get, not necessarily Toronto, but I wanted to get to the NHL or Sportsnet or TSN at the time. I remember when Sportsnet started, all this talk started coming around about a regional sports network. So we all thought, oh my God, they're going to set up shop in Halifax. They didn't, but I was sending in tapes, you know. I didn't have a chance back then. And then I just thought, after a couple years at Channel 10, they did ask me to call TV bingo, Chris. That's the one thing I wouldn't do. They asked, but I'm like, I can't. I used to go change the sign outside in the storm, you know, letter by letter, like, you know, Channel 10. But I couldn't somewhere. Do bingo. Yeah, like I paid my dues, and then I thought I just want to make a living as a sportscaster. So I moved to Calgary. I took a job for $10 an hour, writing news for a station called A Channel. I was their morning news writer, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did that for 2 months, got bumped up to full-time writer. They were paying me $24,500 a year. Dude, I thought I was rich because at Channel 10, I was making like $14, $15 a year. First thing I did, Chris, I went big time and went and leased a 1999 Pontiac Sunfire, buddy.
There you
Baby
go.
blue. Baby blue. Like
There
a
you
total
go.
cougar car, right? And then I got bumped up. Then they had a sports opening, and I auditioned for it. And I thought I did well. And everyone's like, how could you do that? I'm like, I told you I did it back in Halifax, right? Because we had a local news show, too. So I was the sports anchor. I was the play-by-play guy, cameraman, editor. And I go in, I'm taking a leak in the bathroom. The news director pulls up to the stall beside me. He said, can't give you the sports job. Yeah. Because you want to be a videographer, which was a one-man band. You know, you shoot your own story.
Yeah.
Board. I said, sure. Did that for 8 months. Another sports guy left. Got that gig, and away I went. So I went Calgary, Ottawa, Edmonton, and finally Toronto. And I always had my heart set once I started being a sportscaster on working at a national level. So I would send tapes to TSN and Sportsnet. And 14 years ago, Sportsnet was dumb enough to hire me, and I'm still here.
Smart enough to hire you. I think they
Thanks, buddy.
Certainly that other station, I won't even mention their names, missed the boat with you. That's for sure.
I was there for a bit. And I used to run into your buddy Danny O'Toole, who's just a terrific guy.
Yeah.
Jay, and a lot of talent.
Yeah, for sure. So, you make your way to the Sportsnet Central.
Yes.
In Toronto with Evanka Osmak.
Yeah. She says hi, by the way.
What's that?
She says hi, by the way.
Tell her I said hello.
I was doing your pod.
Yeah. I seen you guys on quite a few occasions and watch you have just such a great rapport. Was that there the first time? Did you have that the first time, second time, or did that take a little bit to develop, or was it just natural, you two?
I think it was natural. I think we just hit it off. Evanka had, she was kind of searching for a co-anchor, and I was very happy to be there. And I think we both looked at each other. We didn't say it, but I'm sure we both, on some level, said, let's really make this work. And we're kind of like city mouse and country mouse. She's a city girl. I'm a country boy. And I like to think I get along with everybody. There's people who say that's not true for sure.
Well, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. It seems to me like you do.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. So I like to walk in a room with a smile. Sometimes I don't, but Evanka was great. She was, and I remember I would say to her, let's just be ourselves. Like, we're not here to be broadcasters. The night the Montreal Canadiens defeated the Boston Bruins 4-2 on the strength of 2 goals from Patrick Laine. That's not my style.
Yeah.
So when we come out of games, they can give us all the stats they want. I don't care. I'm just going to react. Hey, that was a great save, wasn't it, Evanka? We can talk about the game, and then and then as we get to know each other, I get to know things about her. She's an engineer. She went to private school. She gets to know things about me. I graduated with a 2.62. I'm not a rocket scientist. So she's this very academic person. I'm more meat and potatoes. So that's it. We just kind of get along. And it's funny. I get along really well with her husband. She gets along extremely well with my wife. I just bought a new car. I traded in a truck for a car. Evanka and my wife called it the clown car because it's really small. I didn't realize how small it was when I bought it. They would constantly make fun of me. So yeah, we have a great time together.
That's awesome. And it's a great, certainly a great duo and a great show to watch and fun. Looking back over all the people you've talked to, you've interviewed, the sports, Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, everything you've covered over. Yeah. What was that one moment for you that you're like, I gotta pinch myself? I can't believe. Like I remember being in the Habs locker room the first time, and I'm looking around. There's Larry and Guy, and I'm like, really? I'm here. The year before, I was in a college bar, the Cask and Flag, and drinking with my teammates. And here I am with these assholes that I don't like. It
makes no sense.
Yeah, so that was my moment. I'm like, holy.
So the pinch me moment was being on the bench at the Bell Center. But the first one, I'll show you what it was. I'm going to show you what it was.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. So I'll show you what it was. Grab this off the wall. So when I first started, I was about a year and a half in, maybe, sports guy for quarter anchor out in Calgary, and it's announced that Team Canada Olympic team is going to train at Father David Bauer before the 2002 Olympics, pardon me. So there's a press conference, would have been May or June maybe, in Calgary. And they're going to announce that they're coming to Father David Bauer, and the head of the Olympic team is going to be there. And the press release comes out, and they say, Ken, can you cover this? I'm like, yeah. So it's announced that Wayne Gretzky's going to be there. So I love the Montreal Canadiens. I love Peapod. When I was a kid, all the Habs fans, all the Leafs fans would say, I hate Gretzky, because he was so good. But I was like, hate him? You got to respect this. This guy's amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember being, 10, 11, 12 going, this is special. Like, Dad talks about Gordie Howe and Rocket Richard. And one day I'm going to talk about this guy to my kids. Like, this is special. And I would watch him in awe. And I had Daewoo 301, still wear them, by the way, from 1989. Very comfortable. I wear my Gretzky Jofa. And the Habs are my favorite team, but I loved Wayne. So they say you're going to go to this press conference to interview everybody, and Wayne's going to be there. So I tell my brother. My brother's like, this is awesome. I'm like, I know, but it's a job. Like, I'm not going to fanboy. So I go in, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to own this scrum. So Wayne does his thing on the podium. He comes off, and the scrum starts. And I'm like, I was always very shy, Chris, believe it or not.
Yep.
But I said, I'm going to own this scrum because if I'm here, I have to do my job. So I'm scrumming Gretzky, and my brother had said he's going to sneak in with a camera and get a picture. I'm like, if you sneak in, I'm going to kill you because I could lose my job. So I do my thing. I remember like the first 5 questions I got with Wayne. And then, I go home. My brother's like, what was that like? I'm like, oh, that was amazing. I couldn't believe I was there. Like, but like, I'm pretty, I'm kind of proud that I get to this level. 3-4 months later, it's my birthday, and my brother gives me this. And that's the first time I ever interviewed Wayne.
I see it.
That's me in the yellow. That's Mr. Gretzky with his eyes shut, obviously, and all. And so my brother snuck in with a camera and snapped that picture unbeknownst to me. And that was, for me, that was going, holy smokes, this is pretty cool. I get to question the greatest player ever. And since then, I've done a couple things with Mr. Gretzky. There was somewhere up there doing a speaking engagement together. And for me, it was like you say, I'm in the dressing room with Guy and Larry, and I'm holding a mic in front of a guy I met when I was 11, like in awe. So it was a full circle moment. It was an I can't believe this moment, but it was also for me, and I don't know what it was like for you being in that room with the guys, but it was also a moment where you got to go, I belong here because I'm actually here.
Yeah.
As much as I feel like I'm in foreign territory here, I also have to believe in my heart and in my mind that I belong here and I worked hard for this. And I'm sure if you're on the ice skating around warm up and Larry's there and Guy's going by with his awesome hair, maybe you're watching him. But then at the same time, I think you probably got to look down and go, holy smokes, I'm wearing the same sweater as he is,
Yeah. It took a while, believe me,
yeah, I bet it did.
To realize that. The couple of things stood out for me with those guys. And one, my first year, we had after I got called up, we had it wasn't long either after I got called up, probably about 2 weeks. We had a practice where it was not optional for me.
Yes.
And there was one other guy that was injured. One guy that was injured, and it was Guy. And he was coming back from injury. So we went to Verdun Auditorium. I show up there for practice. The rest of the team has a day off. And I'm there for practice, and I get there, and I'm in the room getting ready, and all of a sudden, who walks in? Le Démon Blanc.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just couldn't believe it, because I just said, yeah, like last year, I was in the college bar with my friends and playing at Boston Arena, and hating on the Canadians, and there's Guy, and we go out on the ice. He said hi, introduced him. He knew me because I had picked him up and gave him a ride when I was in Boston. I don't know if you've heard that.
That's a great story. I know that story.
You've heard that one.
Yeah.
And he knew me as that kid from Boston. And he was just so cool with me. After practice, he took me. He said, "Let's go. We'll go to lunch. We'll go to Thursday." And we got in the Corvette, and I'm buzzing up the street in the car. I'm with Flower. I'm like, I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. And then we go into Thursdays, and it's like, you think Jesus Christ himself walked in.
Absolutely.
It was unbelievable. As I'm walking in, I'm like, got my head down, right? Everybody's like, gee, gee. And we sat and had lunch, and it was like, wow. So that jump, I had made this jump somehow from the Cask and Flagon to Le Beau Jeudi on Crescent Street with Guy, no longer with my teammates at Northeastern. So it was funny. But, you know, how about over the years, I'm sure all the interviews you've done and people you've talked to, interesting people, sometimes things probably didn't go as planned. You know, got hit with like the ephus pitch or a major league slider or a curveball. What was that one of those moments where, oh my God, what do I do now?
I was doing a stand-up outside a Toronto FC game when I first got to Toronto. I was working for CP24, which is our 24-hour news channel here in town. And they sent me to a soccer game, and the mounted police were there, the horse unit from Toronto. And as I was doing a stand-up, a fan made a snowball out of horse manure and threw it at me. He missed, and then he ran at me. The mud ball. Then he ran at me and tackled me, and a bunch of cops jumped in, but he did get my knee, and I went down, and I was like, what the frig is this? Like, what's going on? But I've never had like an on-air gaffe that's gone viral or anything like that. I might tonight. I don't know. But I've never had like a crazy error. I've screwed up. I remember doing local sports in Edmonton, and it was a high school city final, and the camera guy came back with the tape at 11:25, and I had to have it cut and edited and written for like 11:40. So I did the whole presentation, and then the phone rang, and they said, you know, you had the team mixed up. This high school was in blue, and that high school was in red. So I screwed the whole friggin' thing up.
Yeah.
My news director, he's like, you got to eat some crow. So he made me go to the high school the next day and do a story on it, which I respected a lot. So, and a lot of times, you just know, as you know, flying by your pants, you're going to say things that are wrong, but you can't kill yourself for it. It's like being on the ice, right? You're not always going to make the right play, but you got to forgive yourself, move on, and live from it, learn from it. But there was never like a glaring error. But I remember that horse crap snowball coming at me at outside the BMO field, and just kind of like that. And then the guy trying to tackle me. I don't know what I did to him, but I assume he was just a well inebriated soccer fan. You know, soccer fans got to live up to their rep, right?
Yo, they do.
Yeah. So there was that stuff, but for the most part, I've survived it kind of unscathed virally. But that's the great thing about live TV, right? It could always go really, really wrong at any time. So you got to have that little delay in your head.
Yeah. Right.
Which comes, I think, from experience and whatnot. But it can go off the rails for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, it's funny. Like I used to try and have fun in interviews when I played, right?
Yes.
I would want to have fun. And I also get how hockey players or athletes can be guarded. And we're careful. We got to say the right thing. And, you know, what do you got to do to get back in the game? Oh, put the puck behind him. Go get him. Throw everything at the net. Go to the net. All the cliches.
Yeah.
How about that one interview, that one athlete that just blew you away? You were like, shit, I never expected that from this guy.
Wow. Let me think. That's a good one. You know what? Back when I did in Calgary again, National Lacrosse League, when you'd interview the NHL guys or the CFL guys or the baseball guys, or there's that 10 minutes where you got to wait. And this coach of the Calgary Roughnecks, they'd just blown a game. And we're waiting by the room, and he comes off the bench. He's like, get the hell in here. He just let us in, and he went and ate shit.
He couldn't wait to rip.
Oh, right. No, he put on a show, F-bombs and all this stuff. It was like the first reality TV ever. So I remember that, like having full-on access to a room, like non-guarded. Because, you know, the cool-down period,
yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Guys come in, they're probably swearing at each other, and then they come out, tell the media, oh, you know, we just didn't play our game. You got to get pucks in deep. One of the boldest things I ever did, I was young and stupid, and I thought, Chris, that I was the guy that could get beyond the cliches, right? I was the new shit on the block in Calgary, and the Flames were a really bad team back in the day. They were boring. They didn't have much going for them until Iggy found his stride there in the fall of 2001. So this would have been, I'm guessing, 99, 2000, around then. Don Hay was the head coach. Don was a great coach, right?
Yeah.
Legend in Kamloops, all those Memorial Cups. But he was coaching a Flames team that was pretty hard done by. They hadn't made the playoffs in a few years. That was in the era when they had to have an actual lottery between the Flames and Oilers to raise money so they could stay afloat. Flames couldn't score, couldn't do anything right. It was like game 60 or whatever. And I remember it was me and this reporter from CTV named Russ Peake. Russ was an awesome guy, total gentleman. He's since passed, but he was a beauty guy. We're interviewing Don Hay, and Don's just kind of spitting out the cliches. He's like, we just got to play our game. And me being the little dickhead I was, I said, well, you're 60 games into the season and you've won 21. What is your game? And he just,
oh my God,
he death stares me, right? And I'm sure he death stared me maybe for half a second, but I could feel the sphincter go. And in my mind, he was like staring me down forever. And he kind of just went on the cliche and away he went. And Russ Peake goes, kid, you're new, but you got a set of balls. I was like, yeah, I guess. Haven't done that since.
Right.
It was more stupid than a set of balls, but yeah, I remember that pretty well.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah. So when guys would interview you, like, you're getting interviewed by Hockey Night in Canada, are you more nervous than normal, or were you just like whatever?
No, I was just whatever. Whether it was in between periods in Boston from Fred Pearson or Derek Sanderson. It didn't matter, And Hockey Night in Canada. I remember one of my favorite evenings was, well, it wasn't my favorite from the standpoint I wasn't playing. It was the Stanley Cup final, and I had torn ligaments in my ankle the game before.
Yeah. And
we have a chance to beat them in Calgary. And I went in the warm-up. They froze my ankle. My ankle was huge. And I remember Big Serge came to me afterwards, and he said, hey, big boy, you can't play. Your right leg can't keep up with your left.
Wow.
And, they watched me in the warm-up. I mean, come on, I can still play. I can fight. No. You have to think of the team. I was so like bummed out because, you want to be there that last game with your jersey on. I don't want to go in the room. And back then you didn't do it, but you go in and put your equipment on and rush back out and say, ooh, I wanted to be sweating. I wanted to be, and I just felt like I was missing out, and it was a tough night for me until I got on between periods with Ron and Don.
Yeah.
And Grapes kissed me and told me he loved me.
Yes,
I was like,
that might have been his first kiss. There's a lot of people
I think so.
The Dougie kiss, but you might have been his first bromance on air.
Honest to God, and I remember being on the Grapevine with him. I remember being a kid growing up in Boston. I loved his brash toughness. Like, Boston people friggin' loved him. And you needed that in that market. And certainly Harry Sinden didn't, though, at one point. It went a little too far, I think, for Harry's liking.
Oh, God. Well, Don had that raw emotion, and that's what made him work as a coach, as a broadcaster, because people could relate to him. He was one of the guys. And it was just, again, another one of my hockey heroes, and I always used to watch Grapevine. I think it was on ASN at 6:30 on Saturday. And it was just, he could connect to people. He was normal. He made it fun. And again, so I think of the great broadcasters.
Yeah.
I think of Danny Gallivan. I think of Bob Cole. I think of Don Cherry. How many times did Danny, Bob, or Don read you a stat? The answer is 0.
Yeah. See you
my
later.
My wife's a communications coach, and she always says, people don't remember numbers. They remember stories.
Yeah.
So next time you watch a game and you're into it, Dan Robertson's great at it. He's just doing the play-by-play. He's bringing you into the arena.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can get numbers wherever I want. I can Google anything, but tell me a story. So that's why I if someone Googled you, it would say Chris Nilan was the most penalized player in the 1980s. And, he was an all-star. Went to Northeastern, and they'd see your PIM totals and they'd see your goals and assists, but they wouldn't know your story. They wouldn't know that you came from Northeastern and had to buy tickets to get to see the team that drafted you when you were on the ice with Guy Lafleur, and that you had your ankle frozen and begged to play in 86. They don't see that. That's right. That's what's behind the numbers. And that's what fuels me. Like, that's why I geek out. Yeah. And that's to me what it's all about the stories. It's all about the people who played it and what went into it. And like when I hear you talking, like there's the picture of you. Is that Gaetan Lefebvre with you where you're drinking the cup there, the trainer?
Right
The one
here.
where no, up where you're drinking the cup. Look where you're drinking out of the cup to your right in front of you. I think that's
Gaetan. Yeah,
That's Gaetan, right?
yeah.
So, like the role
You'd
that he
recognize
that
that nose anywhere, wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly. Like the role that he played on that team.
Yeah.
Like people forget when you. I think that it's kind of resonating with people now, but there's more than just the 18, 20 guys in uniform that night, right? There's a lot of people that go into it. And those are the great stories, right?
It's funny that I look around at all this, and you know, I got some great pictures here, and I never had any of this stuff up anywhere. Okay, my parents passed. My mom just last November. My dad back in 2021, and I was there with Jamie, my wife, and went up in the attic, and it's unbelievable. This jersey here, my rookie jersey.
They had it?
Listen, we're going through all this boxes of stuff, and there's this big green hefty alligator trash bag, and it got a bunch of hockey socks in it and different like odds and ends. And we're going through it, pulling everything out. And down the bottom, I went, no freaking way.
Jesus.
And it's my rookie jersey. I couldn't believe it. My parents had it. And
wow.
I was like, so anyway, we get all this stuff. And Jamie's like, what the hell? You got to put this up. These are great, memories. They're great things to have. And I'm like, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we got back here when I started the podcast, when I was unceremoniously dumped from TSN.
Yeah.
Which I accept full responsibility for. I started the podcast, and Jamie said, so she did all this, and it's unbelievable when I look at it now. Like, I got my Nova Scotia picture up here.
Yeah.
Lined up against someone with that Nova Scotia.
Look great.
Oh, it's
Brof your coach?
No, Bert Templeton, the punch up and pistony. Yeah,
Bert Templeton.
Oh my God, is right. And,
oh my God, that must have calmed you down as a young guy.
Oh no, I got all the scoops ahead of time. I got all the scoops. He hates college players. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like college kids. Get at the end of the line. Don't be first in drills. Thank God Tim Burke was there for me. But Bert came to really like me.
I was gonna say once you
pretty
saw you
quickly.
Do your thing, he wouldn't take too long to take.
Yeah. It didn't take long.
Yeah. Oh, actually. That college guy.
Yeah, that college guy.
Yeah.
So the one who knows how to fight.
Yes.
Regardless if he never fought in hockey, he knew how to fight. But it's funny. Grapes. Talking about grapes, I had him on here in the podcast when it was my first year, and had him on, and his son Tim was helping him out. Mm-hmm. When we were talking, and I thought back all the times, and he was just so, like, I look at him as this cute old man now. Mm-hmm. Like, and people, I know he was brash, and he didn't. Mm-hmm. He is, and he just, Chris Boy. He would say, Chris Boy. Yeah. And it just like, I'm like, I love this guy. Like, how can you not love him? And I certainly. I don't want to get too much into that, but I just love Don Cherry.
I love
He's a Canadian icon, and just a shame what happened to him.
It is. I love the guy. He has been so supportive of me. Again, there's a surreal moment when Ron and Don know your name.
Yeah.
How the hell does Don know my name?
Yeah.
And he was kind enough to be in my first book. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And that kind of put it over the top. And I mean, I had somebody reach out to me once. Can Don come down to Nova Scotia for something? I'm like, I don't think he can pull that off. But 2 weeks later, the guy gets just a box of stuff from Don. Here, auction this off. Sorry, I can't make it. He did so much for so many people. And like, he's Don. And it was an honor to be around him. And I got to escort him through the Winnipeg airport one morning to a flight. That was a great adventure.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was epic. We didn't even have to wait in security. We didn't have Nexus. We just walked. So there's 500 people. We just went, there we go, let's go. Right to the front of the line. Through we went. We got into the Air Canada Lounge. How do you make this coffee? I had to make him a coffee. We went out, waited for the plane. And I think I told you this the other day, but when we waited for the plane, we eventually went down and waited for the plane. And Don sat, and then people recognized him. And it was just a flood of people to see him. And these two big hulking guys come up and get their pictures. I go, Don, you know who that was? He's like, what? I go, that was Arn Anderson and Lanny Poffo. He's like, the Macho Man's brother. I'm like, yeah, dude. So, and Lanny Poffo was so polite to him. And, you know, Don and I were first on the plane. And it was a real honor to kind of soak it all in. And like, that, again, I'm a guy who grew up watching Coach's Corner. I love hockey the way Don loves it. It's honest. I love the game that way. I love accountability. And, everything. I mean, every Christmas it was a Rock'em Sock'em video, right? And I still ask Al Frady all the time, could your hair still go like that if you got hit into a sanction, Al? Can it still do that? And he's like, of course he doesn't have hair to do it. Yeah, it's just stuff burned into my mind, you know, as a kid.
So, God, I really like. You have amazing recall, and
Thanks.
You know, I'm sure a lot has to do with your favorite thing to do, your hobby, I would think.
Yeah.
And card collecting. And I think back when I was a kid, I used to have a brown, bag from the store, from the supermarket. Mm-hmm. I'd just throw all my cards in there, and then we'd go and flip them up the corner against the schoolyard, the wall, flipping and ruin them. And, I don't know whatever happened to that bag, but I mean, your collection of cards, when did it start? And do you have those cards from the very beginning?
I have a box upstairs of my original cards. Every Montreal Canadian has a pinhole in the top, including your rookie card. Because they were on my wall at Patterson Street in Pictou. And then I have, my more, I got serious into collecting around 87, 88. And I was like, oh, these things are worth a little money. Put them in the plastic holders and all that. And I was, grade 11, 10, 11, 12, I was dealing cards, setting up at shows in Halifax. Then, when you go away to college and your first few years working, these things come along you're interested in. Girls, that's what they were called. So your cardboard kind of goes away. But as you get older, you settle down a little. And, I guess the bug came back probably 15, 16 years ago. And for me, they're little pieces of history. They helped me learn about the game. The internet comes along, and I learned that the first guy ever born out of Nova Scotia to play in the NHL was a guy named Flash Hollett from North Sydney, Nova Scotia. So I'm like, I think I need a Flash Hollett card. So I tracked it down. It's over there. And
wow.
I look at these things and I learn from them. And I'm sure that, like you said, this recall for the useless that I have, it's hockey and Degrassi Junior High. I can tell you anything about Degrassi Junior High. And it's probably from turning the cards over, reading little bios on the back. I used to love the ones with the cartoons. And then, I always looked at them not as, well, sure, some are investments, some are money, no doubt about it. But to me, they were the internet before the internet. All I knew about you was I could turn the card over and I could see that you were from Massachusetts and you played in the AHL and maybe you played at Northeastern. And that was it. Yeah. And the only way I knew what the LA Kings sweaters looked like was from a hockey card because we weren't getting their games on TV in Nova Scotia. Right. I didn't know Jim Fox wore Stan Mikita Northland until I saw him on a hockey card, right? So for me, as a kid growing up in a small place, 12 to 14 hours from the nearest rink, with one game on a week, all I knew about hockey was what I got from Hockey Digest, which I was a subscriber to. I had a letter to the editor in there when I was 14, by the way, saying they shouldn't put teams in the Sun Belt. And my hockey cards, right? And one game a week. And then I could go see Teapot and the Mariners play up close. And so I would learn all these things from cards. And it kind of stuck with me because I'm, a hockey history nerd. Yeah, so that's kind of where it went.
Yeah, it's funny you didn't want teams in the Sun Belt because you know what?
Yeah.
Really great NHL players are going to come from the Sun Belt one day.
It's crazy, isn't it? You know why?
Crazy?
I got it all figured out. Because in places like Phoenix and places like Florida, when the players retire there, they actually let them coach the kids. Unlike in Canada, where there's this infrastructure of minor hockey coaches that don't let the NHL guys work with the kids. It's an amazing thing to me.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I saw Kevin Bieksa talk about that, right? Hockey Night.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about it, and it's so true. Because they're, parents want those guys who play at the NHL level to teach their kids and help their kids, and it's so cool. And I guess looking at it for me, I'm when you think back to 1980, what a group of young college kids did against the Russians to win the goddamn gold medal, which was just out of reach. Yeah. And they came together and did that. And those players, thing is, I had an opportunity to go to the tryout for that team. I did a regional tryout, and I didn't go to I just wanted to go to Colorado Springs. I knew I wasn't going to make the team, but at least get me to Colorado. I wanted to get out of the state, right?
Yeah.
Get me out of the state. I want to go somewhere and play hockey. And it didn't happen. And I didn't get to go. I was bummed out, and I ended up going Nova Scotia camp, and then blah, blah. And then my first year, they win that gold medal.
Insane.
And I'm like, wow. They obviously picked the right team.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Right? And so I couldn't be like, oh, they should have picked me. But, it's incredible to think how far now the game has come in the States. And it really has. And a lot has to do with expansion, grassroots level hockey. But, I was talking to Craig Ludwig. He's coaching a team in Dallas. They freaking fly to games on weekend. They fly kids. Like, they fly kids to other states, Colorado, they're playing. Like,
it's a money game down there. Don't get me wrong. It's a money game in Canada. It's even more so a money game in the U.S. To me, the big game changer for USA Hockey was when they put in that U.S. National Development Team in '96. Yeah. They put it in Michigan. Rod Bracewell's one of the guys there running around. They do an awesome job because they are practicing every day, best on best. Whereas in Canada, maybe we got a good guy in Drummondville, another good guy in Owen Sound, good guy in Red Deer. But in the U.S., they got these guys centralized, and they're best on best, and it is making a massive difference. Like it is impressive, and I think obviously with all these major junior teams in Canada, there's money to be made. So I don't think you're going to see the system change up here. But if we could have copied that system they have in the U.S. 25 years ago, I think you'd see a big difference in our game. Not that we're not producing elite players, but when you look at all the retired NHL guys around here, we should be producing more elite players. Yeah. But I'm sure you talk to your buddies. It's hard for some of them to get a volunteer coaching gig because they don't want these guys around because there's these little kingdoms set up throughout minor hockey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. And you wonder what's going to happen now with junior hockey too, with the NCAA. Yeah. It's open now. Anybody can come play. Doesn't matter.
I heard, that first got spoken to me by a major junior scout a couple of years ago. He told me about the NCAA thing coming down soon, and I briefly heard about the CHL Super League. Like maybe but then everybody else becomes tier 2. So I don't know. The major junior hockey. There's going to be a lot more Americans. Like look at the Halifax Mooseheads. They just picked up 2 kids just like that. Yeah. And phones are ringing, man. Guys aren't making the NHL from the farm anymore, right? No, the Sutters are a thing of the past, sadly. Yeah. And frozen ponds, well, you might have one, but the kids aren't out playing on them. It's like you said, like Luddy's team's flying. That's crazy, but they all do that down there.
Yeah, for sure. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the landscape changes there in NCAA and junior hockey.
I was going to ask you. Yeah. Go ahead. What was your scholarship worth at Northeastern, and can you imagine what it'd be worth now? Oh, that's like a $75,000 a year school now, isn't it?
Oh yeah, easily. So I got a full ride. I wanted to live at school. My father wouldn't let me because he didn't trust me. Yeah,
smart guy.
Yeah, but I didn't get the full college experience. But there were a few nights I did. Yes, that way. Yes. But when I think that and that, and I get it. My dad didn't want me to leave school. I got drafted in my second year, and I wanted to leave right away.
Sure.
You know, I always say this. So if I had left after I got drafted, I would have been there for that fourth in a row. You know, and chances are, I'd have got called up because I'd have been fighting, and you know, Scotty against Boston, he'd want tough guys, and so I'm sure I would have been there. So I missed that cup.
Yep.
I come next year, we lose in the first round in Minnesota, Game 7, overtime at the Forum. I'm like, okay, no 5 in a row. I thought I was getting a cup my first year. Boom.
Damn.
And then my last year, just think of this.
Yep.
92. I come back from Boston. Serge brings me back, and then we end up bowing out that year in the playoffs, and I want to play one more year. I want to play one more year, and Jacques Demers was coach, and there was 2 guys that it was between me and Rob Ramage. And Big Serge told me, he said, we can have 2 guys 34 of age on the team and the coach, and we want to go with a defenseman. So, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to chase this thing around anymore. I probably, you know, I could have played maybe out in L.A., could have went somewhere else. And I mean, I came full circle. Serge brought me back. I'm retiring. That's it. And I had questions about the fighting at the end. I knew I was old. I knew I was old and beat up. So just say, I missed that first one. I missed
bookended. It's a book. What a bookend, eh? On that.
And in the middle, I got one. Thank God.
In the middle, you got one. That's a lot.
But imagine if I didn't.
Oh my God.
Imagine if I didn't. How I'd be like. You know, I had Will Payman on last week, and it was funny.
Number 99.
We were at the tournament in PI for the Boys and Girls Club, and we're sitting at the table there, and he's looking across at me. He's going, "I can't believe it. You got a Stanley Cup, and I don't." I'm like, "Get over it, will you, Wolfie? Come on, get over it." And then I think it was one of was it Reg Leach's son?
Yeah.
Is it Reg
Jamie?
Leach's son? Jamie. He got
Jamie.
He got 2 cups.
Yeah.
He was at the table, and Wolf didn't know who he was. And I had never met him either, and I met him, and Wolf said, "Who's this guy? He got 2 Stanley Cup rings in his fingers, right?" And he says, "Oh, I have one from Pittsburgh and one in L.A. or something." And
Oh my
Wolf
God.
was like, "Why?
Yeah,
Why not me?"
It's not fair. I got a buddy who won.
It isn't
his first year
fair.
with Dallas. He won his first year with Dallas, and I think if you win first year, you probably think you're going to win every year.
Oh,
Not too good.
you know, you think you're coming back. That's for sure. Like when we won in '86. Oh yeah, we'll do this again next year.
Absolutely.
Hello. And it's so difficult. Even more so today. It's difficult to win than it was then.
32 teams.
Yeah.
I think you need more luck today than you did back in the day. That's for sure. For sure. So you know, listen, the books, the passion for writing. You know, hometown hockey heroes like the forgotten 60-goal man, Dennis Maruk. Yeah, Denny's story. Yeah,
it's crazy, that guy, how small he was and how good he was for a team that was like, hello, the Caps, but 60 goals, and is the forgotten man, right?
He is. If you ask anybody, name the 60 goal scorers, they get down the end, they can't figure out Dennis. Dennis still has the hands, as you know.
Yeah.
What a life he led after hockey too, right? He was on a boat in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and he's a farmhand for John Oates. I'm like, what the frig, Dennis? But again, Chris, that goes back to these stories I love are the stories that aren't told, the stories that kind of slip under the radar. I did a story on guys who scored 1 goal, a book on guys who scored 1 goal. I did a book on guys who played 1 game, because for me, people might go, "Oh, he was no good. He only played 1 game in the NHL." I'm like, are you friggin' kidding? If you play 1 game in the NHL, that is absolutely incredible. Like, people go back to their hometown like, that guy's friggin' awesome. I'm like, that guy he barely made the local junior A team. He is awesome. But so then think of how good you got to be up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and for Dennis to score 60 as a small guy, one of my favorite chapters in that book is called "Learn to Be a Prick," where Dave Hutchison takes him before his first NHL camp, escaping with the London Knights. And he's like, "All right, kid, this is what you got to do with your stick. Because this is the 70s, right? He's teaching him. And another great one is his first year in California with the Golden Seals. He scores 30 goals, and he's supposed to get a bonus if he scores 30 goals. But his agent, Boom Boom Jeffrey, didn't have a copy of the contract, so he couldn't prove it. And the team's like, well, we're not showing you our copy.
Sorry.
Of the contract. Yeah, too bad. 15 grand in 75. That's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
You know? But Dennis is a great guy. He and I could kind of relate because he went through some tough times. Married man now down in London, having a blast. Love the guy. And if you see him, ask him about his toe. He'll show you his toe.
Yeah, I know. He always does. I've done a few things with Denny over the years, and he is a good man.
A beauty.
He's a beauty. So, we know your favorite team was the Habs.
Yes, sir.
Now, as living the life you have, and I think back, God, when I started, one of the best things for me about that radio job I took here in Montreal, that's why I moved back here. Mitch Melnick really helped me with that, and Wayne Buse, the general manager of the station at the time. Those guys were awesome to me.
Awesome.
But, Jamie would say to me, and the night before my first show, I was scared to death. And I mean scared to death. I was never trained in media, none of that stuff. I didn't go to school, none of that. It was like, I was all worried about the semantics, there's 4 segments in an hour. I got 3-hour show here. What the hell? I got to hook the next segment. I'm like, what do I do? I was scared to death. Jamie even said, I've never seen you like this. What? I said, you don't get it. I'm like, my stomach was, I was so bad. Thank God the kid that worked with me, Sean Campbell, was good at what he did. But, it took me the longest time to pick all that stuff up. And even then, I was never really good at it. I feel I was so much better as a compliment, kind of like a Ron and Don, than me running the show. And it became that, the show. Sean kind of steered everything, and it became that. But one thing that really I got, the best thing for me about the broadcasting on the radio, having that radio show, was I became a good listener.
Yes.
I was always so busy thinking of my next, what am I going to say next? What's my next question? And Mitch Melnick said to me, Chris, he saw me writing down questions one day. He said, what are you doing? I'm getting ready for my interview. And he goes, stop. He said, listen, put a couple bullet points if you want, but you're so good at conversation, converse with people.
Exactly.
Converse with people. And it just, he said, and then listen, you might not even ask the question you have written down, because if you're listening to the person you're speaking with, you're going to have a question off of what he's saying. And it just, it changed everything for me.
Absolutely. Like, you're a great storyteller. So you tell your stories, but when you're interviewing, it's different. And listen, I've been interviewed by a lot of college students. They'll call you for a project and they have them all written out. And you could say, and then in 1987, I stabbed a guy in the guts. What was your first job? Like, you're missing the story.
Yeah.
So yes, listening it's hard. It's like the switch goes off when you learn, because it's tough. Because you want to come off as somebody that's asking good questions, but when you don't listen, you miss so much. Like, when I interview people for my books and stuff, sometimes they say, what are you going to ask? And I said, I don't know. Depends where it's going to go. So the other day I interviewed you about the Good Friday Massacre. So I think we just started with, what do you remember? And then away we go. And but the listening's the fun part too, because you get involved in it and you're like, this is a pretty good story.
Yeah.
And then with all the technical bells and whistles, I always say somebody else can take care of that stuff. I just want to chat. I just want to talk, and I think you and I are pretty alike. We could talk a while.
We could.
So yes, for me, it's the same. Listening is a challenge at the start. And I actually, my brother just produced a show called Road to Recovery on Bell 5 TV, and he's the interviewer. It's his first kind of show where he's the interviewer. And I called him up and I said, Peter, you did an awesome job, because you would ask the question and then you'd just be quiet and you listen. So again, and that's it's so funny that as a media guy, as a broadcaster, people think you get paid to talk for a living, and you do, but you also get paid to listen, which is kind of strange.
So here you are, very popular broadcaster throughout Canada.
Thank you.
So all these young kids now from Pictou, from Red Deer, from across Canada, Victoria, saying, God, I want to do that one day.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Comes from an Audio Slave song. I tell them, all the kids, this: to be yourself is all that you can do. Be you, and be natural, and be yourself, because if you succeed as yourself. If you perceive it to be failure, it's not really failure, because you're being yourself. And when you're yourself, the pressure goes down, because you don't come on TV going, okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe that first time you were nervous, you were thinking, I have to be Chris the broadcaster. You just had to be Chris.
Yeah.
So they hired you because you're Chris. They didn't hire you because you're Chris the broadcaster. So be yourself, and hopefully you'll find that one person, because that's the other thing is you need that one person who's the boss or whomever to believe in you, to give you that chance. So if you be yourself, I think it'll work out. And if you be yourself and it doesn't work out, well, maybe you weren't meant to be a broadcaster anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe you're supposed to be an entrepreneur or something. But yeah, I just tell kids to be yourself. And I think the hardest thing for young broadcasters is to be yourself, because to be yourself takes guts, because you're putting yourself out there, because someone's going to say, that guy sucks. And when somebody tweets at you that you suck, you got to go, okay, that's that guy's opinion, that person's opinion. But I think when you're yourself, it's kind of like the hockey guys game, play your own game, right?
Yeah.
When you went out there, you weren't trying to be the next Guy Lafleur. You're trying to be the next Chris Nilan, right? And you probably figured out, I got to be me. So that's the same in broadcasting.
Yeah, I got to be me. I'll never forget. I read that book.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You know
Yeah,
who
so
wrote
there
that
you go. Yeah.
You know who wrote it?
What's that?
You know who wrote that book?
I do not.
Derek Sanderson. I've got to be me.
No kidding, Derek.
Yeah,
That's
when I was a
story.
little kid,
Wow.
the books I read, I remember on the way to New Hampshire in the winter, school vacation, because I got it for Christmas. I got to be me. And the other one was All on Ice, and Bobby Orr showing you how to get dressed. And
You told me about that one.
yeah, I never wore socks because of it, because of Bobby.
There you go.
And it's crazy. So a couple more before I let you go. Now, I'm the young kid you just said you gave that advice to, just be myself.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, so you were just yourself. But looking back over your career, what would you have done anything differently?
I was pretty immature, but like it took me a long time to get to the national level. Like I wanted to be at the national level when I was 27, 28. Not everyone's Kyle Bukauskas and they're there when they're 19. Like he's the best.
Right.
But Kyle's a mature young guy. I was
He is good.
Yeah, kid. I was an idiot. I went through a lot of mental crap, anxiety and stuff. And my mask for that was I could drink and feel good about myself. So that, I'm not saying it set me back, but I'm saying I wasn't ready. And when I got ready, I got hired by Sportsnet. I think I was 37, which is kind of old for that. I figured I'd be there at 27. What was it? Yeah, about 37. Yeah, 36, 37. I thought I'd be there at 27. I wasn't. I went through a lot of years where I didn't appreciate my job necessarily because I thought I should have been in another level. But I always enjoyed the job. But yeah, it took me a long time to learn to be myself on TV, which again goes back to me thinking I have to be a broadcaster. I think when I was doing play-by-play, I was myself. But when I would anchor, I'd be like, okay, I got to be the anchor. Yeah. But I think I learned to be myself probably on TV, probably during my Calgary years, so late 20s. And then I was just away we went. And
so the biggest lesson in all that, the biggest lesson in that for
Enjoy the journey. Enjoy
Yeah.
the journey, not the destination. Take joy in the process, which is tough when you're in it. I think
Yeah.
enjoy the journey. Imagine when you were in Northeastern, if you didn't enjoy it, if you just wanted to be in the NHL. So for me,
Yeah.
I try to enjoy the journey, and I'm blessed now that I get to walk into a NHL game with a press pass, but I remember getting to Calgary and that old rickety press box where you walk across the ice,
Yeah.
old school style. I had to walk across that once, and I was afraid of heights, but I thought, I'm here. I got to do this. And I remember the Gretzky interview. It's like I've kind of arrived, and then I was like, I kind of came to the realization, much like you did in the Canadiens uniform, that I'm here because they want me. Not in a conceited way, but I was hired for a reason. Do it. So biggest lesson, enjoy the journey, because the journey's awesome. Because if you don't enjoy the journey and you get to the destination, you go, well, what was all that for? Right?
Yeah. You miss everything. You fly by, and sometimes that's difficult to do, right?
Absolutely, it's difficult to do. And you think if you think every day is a must win, you're wrong. It's a must learn. So it's not all about. It's funny, we have this society where it's all about wins and losses, and there you are behind yourself drinking out of the cup. But there were 13, 14 other seasons too, and I bet they weren't all that bad either, right?
Yeah, no, they weren't. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have from grapes, from the grapevine. I have a picture on my wall here. It has a picture of me sitting in the box with my hand, holding my stick, and the blade is pointed out. I have my CCM helmet on, and it says TKO instead of CCM. I have a halo above my head.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with a big smile on my face. And that was the caricature that Rod McDougall used to do for all the guests on the Grapevine. With John
that's
Sherry.
awesome.
And it was
That's
so cool.
awesome.
And I have another awesome picture back here of me coming out of the box. And Claude, I love this because I love Claude Mouton. Great voice.
Great announcer.
And he had me by the pants, and he would always grab me by the pants because I would try and get out of the penalty box real quick and get a breakaway, hopefully. But he would always hold me. Go,
honest Claude.
You're going to get two more. You're going to get two more. You stay till I let go. And it was just so funny.
His voice was the best.
So, athletes, you're always around sports growing up, the books you've written, the cards you've collected over the years.
Yeah.
Now, because I was an athlete, not so much. I don't want to be.
Come on now, toot that horn a little.
Here's one. If you could trade places for a day with anybody, an athlete, a famous person, for one day and see what it's like to live that life. Like I have someone, like you probably wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for me, but for you, who would it be? With that one person, I would like to just be that person for a day.
Wow. That person for a day. You're going to laugh at the first name that popped into my head. Terry Ryan.
Really?
Or his dad.
Now or then?
Then. Maybe his dad in 72. I mean, that's one thing I realized about being around all these guys whose cards I collected growing up, and now I'm buddies with them, is they're just dudes, right? Everyone's just a guy. But that's funny. The first thing that popped into my mind was TR. I'm so proud of him doing.
He'll love that. He's awesome.
He deserves all that success.
No, he does. Yeah, he does.
And so proud of him.
It's funny, when he wrote that book, for Tales of a First Round Nothing. I was like, what are you doing? First round, you're not a nothing. Like you talked about earlier. My partner Tim on the podcast.
Yeah,
it's me now. No longer Tim, but I loved him. Tim used to be so self-deprecating. I only played 100 games. 100 games. I said, you only played it's funny. When he was on Chicklets, right, they asked him, about his time at Toronto. He says, oh, yeah, I got to shower with the guys once. Like, he's funny, and it's great, but he really self-deprecating when it comes to his career because he felt, 100 games. That's that's nothing, Nux.
It's amazing.
And I mean, yeah, like, come on. I always said that one game is incredible. You play to get the energy to play that one game. So
absolutely.
So
I guess could it be anybody from any time?
anything. It could be a politician. It could be a hero from years ago. It doesn't matter.
I would have loved to be in. I would have loved to be in Gretzky's shoes in the '87 Canada Cup.
Okay.
The pressure he was under and how he handled it.
Yep.
How he elevated Mario. But if there's one person out there I'd want to be for a day, let's go. Because they just retired. So that's not fair.
Okay.
Paul Stanley from Kiss. I want a front Kiss one night.
There you go.
Fireworks going off. I'm the front man.
Go.
That's it. Paul Stanley. That or the Demon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And that makes sense because Terry Ryan's kind of a rock star too, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
Me, it's funny, and I'll tell you who I thought, and a guy I loved, and I've read quite a bit about. Now, I'm not gonna. Another guy I love is Winston Churchill. Like I just love Winston Churchill. I've read his memoirs. I just like Jamie used to say to me, "How the hell can you read so much about one man?" Like the memoirs are like, and I just loved it. I was intrigued by him, but General George Patton.
Really?
I would love to be atop of that tank.
Wow.
Driving into Bastogne, the Battle of the Bulge, and coming in and changing the trajectory of the whole thing.
Changing the whole thing? Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. My grandpa was in World War II, and there was a game last week because we have all these games come in. And there was a World War II veteran at an Oilers game. He was 99. Gene Principe had him on between periods. This guy was as sharp as a tack. And he said to Gene, I want to see that captain of yours. I want to see that. And I pray that he got to meet Connor McDavid because I said to Evanka, I'm like, you know what's funny? And I know people say this all the time, but that's the real hero. Like that's the guy. And this wasn't. It was just pure and natural. But yeah, when you ask me that question now, there's so many great answers, right?
Yeah.
You want to be Guy Lafleur skating down the wing.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Slap shot goal. You want to be. I don't know, Gary Carter. I'm just looking around but I think more so to be the hero from someone else's body, or it's kind of what their perspective on the world would be.
Right.
Like, what would Patton's perspective on the world be after that? Yeah, he's the hero. But what's going through his mind with that? And
we got to go fight the Russians. That's what he was thinking. That's what he was thinking.
Right. And if I'm Paul Stanley for a night, is it just like, okay, that's enough for Toledo. Now on to goddamn Cincinnati. Like, right. So how is he looking at things? You know?
Oh my God. That's so funny. Yeah. Listen, I could talk all day with you. I love to chat with you. And,
thanks, Chris. Like
you're just a great temperament, great wealth of whether you think it's useful knowledge or not. I think it's just awesome. You have such a connection to the game and the love of the game, and just all that. I think it's so cool. You know?
Yeah, I do love the game, and I think that the thing I cherish about it is the people I've met over the years in the game. 99.9% of them are fantastic people, especially when it reaches its highest level. Like you would think that, like me, 10, 12 years ago, calling guys up for a hockey card book, I think I would have been hung up on. I never was. And I love that guys like to tell the stories because they're fun, but I like to chronicle them because they're fun. And I don't need to tell them, but I enjoy telling them, and I want people to remember the people that came before them. And I love the history of the game. I don't want to be that guy that says I hate the new game, because I don't, because there's still some great old school players out there. But I just love that everybody has a story, and to meet the guys that, like, I had your card pinned up on my wall, man. And
that's
to meet the guys whose cards were, look, I didn't tell you this one, but in 1989, I think it was, Guy Carbonneau's nanny was from Pictou. Guy came into Winnebago and stayed in Pictou for a few days. Kids were knocking on the Winnebago, getting Guy's autograph. Came out, played soccer in the Pictou Soccer League. And just to see that these people that you put on a pedestal as a fan, for me to realize that they're kind of just ordinary guys. They did something that to me is what's been special about this storytelling journey is most people are good and most people are ordinary folks with extraordinary stories. So for me, that's been a blast doing all this. And
it's funny.
Yeah,
funny.
not everybody's Johnny Upton and end up working at the Chrysler plant back there. You know?
Yeah.
Some guys go on to do all kinds of different things.
I told you about my dad telling me. I remember, I'll never forget coming out of the forum after game, and I was taking pictures and signing autographs. My father standing over there looking at me like,
yeah.
And I know probably going through his head, who the fuck wants his autograph, right?
Yeah.
Like, the wise ass kid he was growing up, and I came over after. He said, "That's so cool, and it's nice you do that." He said, "Don't ever stop, because if your feet ever leave the ground, you better keep them planted. You never get this big head, and remember those people coming here to see you." And it stuck with me. That did, because probably more out of fear than anything, because Henry would have kicked my ass, and if he ever saw it, and he instilled some of those things in me.
Well, I remember meeting when I met Gretzky for the first time, because we mentioned the Nova Scotia Oilers game. So the Buffalo Sabres played the Oilers at an exhibition game at the Metro Center, fall 1985. Mom gets us 2 tickets. We get in. Mom was a pretty lady. She managed to get in there, and they set her up on a seat on the concourse, and she sat beside Kevin McClellan the whole game. After the game, Mom had 3 tickets to get into this thing put together by Moosehead Breweries. Donnie Morrison got us in. His brother was Kevin Morrison, the tough guy from the WHA.
Yeah.
It's pictures right there.
Yeah.
And we were kids in a candy store. It was at the World Trade and Convention Center. We were the only kids in there, and Wayne was so nice. And every time I'd see him on TV, he continued to be so nice. And Mom said, and this is years before the Tim McGraw song, and she'd say, "Kenny, look at Wayne. He has people all around him, and he's humble and kind. Be humble and kind. Be humble and kind." And sometimes when you think you're cool and you're getting in a side door because you're in the media, you walk in and you're all cool. Yeah, but remember, you're only cool because somebody gave you the media pass, right? Right. I waited in line for a beer in Buffalo 2 weeks ago, just like everybody else, because I didn't have one. So, and it's pretty cool. Like when a kid wants a picture with you, that I'm happy to do it because I was that kid. So that's a true thrill. So try to be nice. So you have your days, right? But hey,
we all do. No
we all do, buddy. Absolutely.
Listen, Ken, thank you so much for taking the time, and you've been so generous with your time, and I appreciate it, and just love chatting with you. And we're going to do this again, I'm sure, in PEI.
Yes, we will.
Not too far off.
No, buddy, it's been a true honor to be on with Numero 3. So I appreciate it, and I'm so proud of the journey you've taken and what you're doing, buddy. It's truly inspiring, and maybe more so than your hockey career, right? So
believe me.
I love seeing you smile, buddy. I love seeing you smile. So
life is good again.
Yes, thank you. And it's well-deserved, so thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Raw Knuckles with Chris Nilan on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.